Welcome to the show. This is your host and brother, Luis Roman. And today I have a very, very special guest. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you know him. And a lot of you maybe don't know him. He is Dr. K. We're going to call him Dr. K today. He asked me to call him that way, but I know his name, his full name is Peter Kwasniewski. I think that's how you pronounce it. And I quote him very often in the show, even though our show is in Spanish. We use his writings and his article for many topics. So today, as you can see, the show is going to be in English. Vamos a colocar las letras, los subtítulos en español para las personas que no hablan inglés. Así que no se vayan, que tenemos un temazo hoy. Vamos a estar hablando del rito romano, de ayer y del futuro, de todo lo que ha sucedido en la iglesia con toda esta batalla litúrgica. Y vamos a estar hablando de un libro que todos tienen que comprar, y lo mejor de todo es que está en español. Así que no se pierdan eso. Después de esta parte voy a seguir hablando en inglés. Dr. K, first of all, I want to say, I want to give you a welcome to the show. How you doing, Dr. K?
Very well. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Yeah, Mr. Peter, that's your name. I'm really happy to have you. Thank you for accepting my invitation. We're going to discuss and we're going to talk about this book that is not new, but I know it's new in Spanish, if I'm not mistaken. El rito romano de ayer y del futuro. And I know my audience, a lot of, I will say 40%, maybe, or 30% of my audience is bilingual. That's the percentage that I have in the United States watching the show. So I'm pretty sure there's a lot of Hispanic that speak English as well. But I wanted the doctor here in our show because he has a lot to offer to the Spanish community. And we're going to talk also about this topic. Thanks to our show, a lot of people for the first time discover the Latin Mass, the Latin Rite. And they've been noticing that it's not just the liturgy, it's much more. It's the doctrine, it's the way we live, how we're supposed to become saints, what actually is Catholicism, who is Jesus. All of that is in there. So all that is going to be discussed today. But before we start talking and asking the questions to Dr. Kwasniewski, we're going to pray. And we usually, as everybody knows, we start with an Ave Maria. So we're going to pray in nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tui mulieribus et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus.
Sancta Maria Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen.
Amen. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. You pray so calm. I had that problem. Maybe because I'm Puerto Rican. We talk too fast. Dr. Kwasniewski wanted to inform the people, that he's a doctor. He has a PhD in philosophy and from the Catholic University of America and BA in liberal arts from the Thomas Aquinas College in California, and also he earned the PhD, as I said, from the Catholic University of America. Dr. Kwasniewski, over the past 20 years, has published more than 1,300 articles, and those are the ones that sometimes I quote in the show. And he talked from many topics, not just the liturgy. And his articles has been translated into at least 18 languages. He has edited and written more than 20 books. So we're talking about a person that really know about the topic. And I wanted to start just right off about the book. Why do you decided to write this book or put everything together for this topic?
Yes, so this particular book is about why there is only one Roman rite. There are not two Roman rites, the old one and the new one. But there's the Roman Rite, which we have from our history, our Catholic history, over 1,500 years worth of organic development. And then we have the modern rite of Paul VI, which was created in the 1960s by a committee of scholars and ideologues, I think you'd have to say, and is an unprecedented rupture from the whole Roman tradition. There is very little in common between the traditional Roman rite and the modern rite of Paul VI. And so in my book, I really wanted to explain this in a way that would be clear and accessible and comprehensive, and to show people what's at stake, the important issues that are at stake between the old way of worshiping and the modern replacement that was given to us.
Doctor, and can you number a few of those big? I know some people talk about in the past it used to be the sacrifice of the mass. Now it's a banquet. Now it's more like a feast, or I don't want to say a party, but that's how it looks sometimes. Are the what you're talking about, or you has more deep issues between the two?
There are many layers, but just to take one layer. Mm-hmm. The Roman Catholic Church worshipped for its entire history from the 4th century to the 20th century in the Latin language. And this language wasn't just a vernacular language in the 4th century. The Latin of the liturgy was always a lofty and high language, a poetic, rhetorical language, not the common vernacular of the people. It never was. And once the Church committed herself in the West to Latin as the predominant language of the late Roman Empire, from that point onwards, the Church conservatively preserved that language in order to preserve the meaning of all of the prayers that were written in that language by the great saints of the past. And, you know, there's this saying about translation is treachery, is betrayal, you know. Translation is difficult. I know that. You know, we're talking about my book in Spanish. There's no such thing as a perfect translation. The Latin language is a sacred language for the Western Church, just like Slavonic is for the Eastern Church, for the Russian Church. Greek is for the Greek Church. You know, Coptic is for the Coptic Church. You know, there are all of these special languages of worship. That's one feature, one characteristic. Another one that's even deeper is the content of the prayers. When you look at the prayers of the Old Missal, they are more realistic. They talk about sin and death and judgment, and guilt and virtue and vice, and the kingship of Christ. I mean, they talk about these big themes that are very realistic and sometimes negative. And, you know, that we need to hear these themes. And in the modern missal of Paul VI, all of these themes have been not either suppressed or softened. Everything's been softened and made more positive, right? More optimistic, if you will, in keeping with Vatican II. So there's often a different theology at work in the old liturgy and in the new liturgy. And so that's a very important difference. Another one that I would point out, I mean, we could talk about this all day, but you pointed out the sacrificial language of the Old Missal. In fact, the Old Missal is centered on the Eucharist and on the Eucharistic sacrifice, the Mass as a representation of the sacrifice of Christ on the cross, of which the Eucharist is the efficacious sign. And the new liturgy that's not absent from the new liturgy, but it's muted. It's a quiet. It's much quieter, and now the people, the community, has been emphasized with the meal, with the Mass as a meal. The Mass is a banquet, but it's primarily a sacrifice, and that has been lost, not just in the way people do things, but even in the Missal itself of Paul VI, that is muted. So, and then finally, I'll just throw this one last thought out because it's a big question you ask. Everything in the old liturgy, and it's not just the Mass, it's the divine office, it's all the other sacramental rites, all of it is required to be done. It's all mandatory. There are no options. And the rubrics are very detailed. They tell the priest exactly what to do, where to stand, where to put his feet, where to put his eyes, how to pronounce the words. Everything is done, is given in detail, so that everything will be done as reverently and as beautifully and as fittingly as possible. In the new rite, there are very poor, inadequate rubrics. There are many options. The priest can do A or B or C. And so every Mass can be different from every other one because it has all these pieces that can be put together in different ways. He can choose a la carte from which Eucharistic prayer to use, 1, 2, 3, 4, or another one. And so the new Mass is essentially variable and the old Mass is fixed.